In today's video, we're going to be checking out the new Diamond Select Toys Gotham Wrath of the Villains. This is Mr. Freeze. Before we have a look at all the stuff that Freeze comes with, let's get some measurements going. Mr. Freeze stands at 7 inches tall. He comes included with a very impressive display stand slash diorama base. You can see the back half of it is a brick wall facing that says ha 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 across the top, across the back there. Got some garbage cans and a box that says Wayne Enterprises. A little bit of a sewage vent there. There's really nice detailing here on the overall base. Now, I've mentioned this time and time again, and I'm sure I'll mention it a couple times after that. Diamond Select are the kings when it comes to dioramas and accessories that come included with their figures. Not only could you use this, you can also combine this with Azrael to build the entire top portion as well, similar to what we saw with the Selena Kyle. But you can also use these backdrops for other things as well. Eventually, maybe when NECA releases, say, a Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees from Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, you could kind of use this base for displaying Jason, you know, as if he's in New York or Vancouver, or wherever they ended up actually shooting the movie. But it does look very impressive. You can take the figure and you can stand him on the base, a couple of peg holes on the back, on the underside of his feet, and you just tab it into the one peg hole that's on his foot. I mean, he doesn't really technically need even the peg to stand. He stands perfectly fine on his own, but if you want to make use of the peg, you can just attach him to the peg like so, which actually I do find is a little harder than just outright standing him on the stand as you see there. Let's move the base, but we're not going to move it too far. I'll just move it off to the side there. Other accessories to come included with Mr. Freeze are a pair of freeze guns, a little different from one another. You've got one that actually holds several different vials. None of the vials are removable, by the way. They're about the same sort of coloring, shaped, of course, differently from one another. And they've got just a very mild amount of silver paint that's been dry brushed on top of that. And they look quite nice. He has really the means to hold both guns if you want to have him dual gunned sort of thing, or you can have him just displayed with the one. I kind of like this one a little bit more than this one here, but again, it's nice to have options available. Speaking of options available, he also comes included, and hopefully try not to drop these in the process, he comes with 3 little canisters of the freeze solution as well. I think these are grenades. I'm not quite 100% certain by that, but he comes with 3 of them. There's no actual means to hold it anywhere on the figure. I thought there might have been a little loop or something that you could have draped these on, but I don't see a section on Freeze where these can attach in place. I mean, granted, you could kind of just have him holding it, and I mean, he holds it pretty good. Like if you want to just have him displayed, you know, that's kind of cool, just having him holding it like that. But there's really no other place that I can see on the figure that would allow those to be housed anywhere else if you're not displaying him with it, or at least holding it. He doesn't come with any sort of interchangeable hands, not that he really necessarily needs interchangeable hands, because the hands that he comes included with really serve every single purpose that you would need. Obviously, you already saw him holding the vials. Those are perfectly fine. And then, of course, he can hold either one of the guns. For that to accomplish, you might want to pry the fingers out a little bit, because he can get his figure around the little trigger point, but it just involves a little bit of prying of the fingers. But either hand will hold either blaster, or as mentioned before, you can have him holding both blasters. For some strange reason, there it is right there. For some strange reason, this one hand is very loose on its peg. The peg seems to want to continue to pop out of its socket. I really don't know why, but it sits really loose in the socket. This other hand's not so bad. I don't know why this hand is giving me as many problems as it is. Okay, so let's have a look at his face, which I am really impressed by. I'm not a die-hard fan of Gotham in all honesty, but I do dig the design of Mr. Freeze here. It kind of takes its cues from, I feel like I'm getting the vibes of like the old classic Adam West series when I'm looking at the design here of Mr. Freeze. He's got like a very vintage look to him, which I quite like. The silver flocked hair is a nice touch, very metallic look to it, which actually resonates quite well with the rest of the blues and the grays that make up his overall suit. He's got a slight frostbitten look to his skin tone, which almost has like a slight bluish tint to it. It's not quite a very warm toned flesh, but instead favoring something a little bit more colder, which makes perfect sense for Mr. Freeze. I've got a little bit of an imperfection on the side, and I can't tell you if that's just specific to my figure or if it's supposed to have that. I don't feel like it's supposed to have that, but I can kind of pretend it's just part of, you know, what happened to him when he went through the accident sort of thing. Armor is looking decent. I love the design choice for his armor. It's much better than just the train wreck that the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze has, which I think is one of the worst costume designs for any super villain in any live action movie, series, or otherwise. This costume I quite dig. It looks like it's got like an insulated sort of fabric material, and then over top of that you've got some plate-ish, like little plates on his legs, his thigh, his arms, shoulders, and of course a very large torso piece that would be keeping the villain cool. Cool. You can even see that they've given him some sculpting on the interior area of this, where you can see the sculpting on the neck, which is quite nice too. Paint is very clean. I got no real issues with the paint whatsoever. It's done very, very nice from head to toe. I love the choice of the metallic blue that they went with, along with the more darker gray that they went with here. I mean, this is the kind of gray I love. And actually, I have a fireplace that's probably very similar to this sort of gray color. Gray is one of my favorite colors. So like seeing the gray with the blue here, it's just everything's coming together quite nicely. Sculpt on his belt is done pretty, again, dare I say, cool. I like how even like the individual fingers have these little platelets on it. Paint is very clean. There's nothing I would say as a negative to the paint application on this figure. Everything is really generally clean. It gets, okay, that's not 100% true. It gets a little splotchy on this one leg. The other leg's not so bad, and I got a little notch on the back there, but that's a very small little thing versus the overall aesthetics of what I'm seeing with this figure here. Posability, let's go ahead and do that now. His head rotates all the way around, and you also got a hinge up and down. Despite the fact that he's got the collar going around his shoulder, it doesn't seem to limit whatsoever his posability in his head. You can even get a slight rocking back and forth on his head too, which is quite nice. I like that. Shoulders hinge out via universal joints. They only get really to about there, and of course the overall makeup of his top torso kind of impedes a lot of the extra motion there. The arms can kind of rotate all the way around. Not too bad there. Bend at the knee, at the elbow. The forearm rotates, and rotates as well, and you got the hinge back and forth. You have an upper torso ball joint, which I'm pleasantly surprised. Let me say pleasantly surprised to see, instead of just simply just a waist swivel. The figure doesn't have a waist swivel, but exchanging it for a ball joint, I'm much happier with the outcome. The legs move forward and back and out, kind of in vein of some of the Mattel figures, but I think done much better here on Mr. Freeze. You got the rotation on the thigh, which is really stiff on this particular figure, but he's got the little cut right there. I think you can rotate the leg, as the plate here looks like it's only glued to this part of the leg, and looks like it's free floating as a separate piece from the top of the leg. So it doesn't look like it would limit this being able to rotate. It simply is just a case where my leg on this figure is just really stiff. He's got a double hinge on the knee, and he's also got not only a hinge back and forth on the foot, but he's also got, yes, for ankle pivot fans, he's got the ankle rocker there as well. Peg holes on the undersides of feet we've already discussed, but not that he necessarily needs a stand. He stands perfectly fine. Except for a few loose joints in some areas, some tight joints in others, and for a hand that falls out of its socket being really the only problems I could find with this figure. Otherwise, I absolutely love what they've done here with this figure. For starters, I already like the design. The design really can't be applauded to Diamond Select 4. Diamond Select really has just recreated it very nicely here in plastic treatment. Of the Gotham figures that I've picked up, and I've picked up a few here and there, by far, I would say my favorite here is Mr. Freeze. Yes, I may have a soft spot for the chilled villain, but I think this villain, the design as well as the figure way it's translated here in plastic form, both do things very well. I love the design, especially love how Diamond Select have recreated here in plastic treatment. So A+ across the board for Mr. Freeze, a fantastic looking sculpt and an excellent looking figure. Today, once again, we're having a look at the Diamond Select toys. This was the Gotham Wrath of the Villains. This was the Cold Collective Mr. Freeze. Stay tuned, guys. More videos are going to be heading your way, and if you want to check out some previous Gotham figure reviews, I've got a playlist on the channel here where you can go and have a look at all the earlier Gotham figures that I've already done reviews for. Certainly a lot more videos are still heading your way. Lots more future Gotham reviews are heading your way as well, so if you're a fan of Gotham, stay tuned for that. Make sure you hit that little subscribe button down below. That will guarantee that you'll always be in the know. For when new videos are hitting this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.